How Schopenhauer shaped Freud's unconscious mind. It was late Freud who acknowledged it, almost reluctantly. Toward the end of his career, when he had read Schopenhauer with great care, from cover to cover, he discovered something disturbing. Not contradiction, not competition, resemblance. His thoughts, which he had worked out over the span of many years, his ideas of the supremacy of irrational desire, the mind's opacity to itself. Something below the level of consciousness doing the real work. Ideas had remarkable parallels in a philosopher who had died 3 years before Freud began medical school. Prior to that, the image of the mind was pure, almost elegant. The reason was the mind. It was just consciousness that was the issue. You pondered, you thought, you decided, and then you acted. Modern man, largely self-transparent, had been constructed by the Enlightenment. That is not what I see in human beings, Schopenhauer replied when he gazed at that portrait. What he saw was dirtier. Those who are doing something bad to themselves, trying to decide and building reasons later on, but not really, because the reason first came into existence, and then the decision. He said the conscious mind was not the source of man's motive, it was the surface. What lay beneath this surface was called the will by Schopenhauer, not willpower, not conscious intention. A force that's moving you without your knowledge of it. Then your conscious mind comes along and creates a story in its mind to make the movement look like an intentional move. He said that the intellect is not the lord of the house. It is the servant justifying what the will has decided. When more recently Freud called the ego a figure who believes that it governs, while its counterpart governs the other, this is not a coincidence. Freud's word is the unconscious. Its will was Schopenhauer's, different frameworks, the same overthrow of the rational faculty as the heart of man. The most controversial link is Freud's late theory, the death drive. A force in the psyche that is not directed toward pleasure or survival, but towards stillness. In the direction of the end of striving, it threw his closest disciples into disarray. Read Schopenhauer on the suffering caused by an endless desire, and the relief that can only come from putting that desire to rest. Freud's late turn begins to seem less isolated. These two are not conveying the same message. Yet they had both come, each on their own path, to the same uncomfortable place of rest. A place where we also gravitate toward the stillness, even as we reach for the desire and the effort. But why did Freud maintain the distance? Partly professional, psychoanalysis had to appear scientific. In part, because the most influential factors are the ones most difficult to find. The presence of a thinker can be invisible because they have formed the intellectual climate before you have been aware of them. It is absorbed before you're given a name. This was an alternative conception of the human being that Schopenhauer had created. Not a rational agent who sinks occasionally, not a rational agent who sinks from time to time, but a being moved by forces it could not have chosen and cannot fully perceive. Building in the thin slice of awareness, it has the narrative of a self that is more effect than cause. Freud took that image to a clinic, a method, a vocabulary, a chair and a sofa and a half hour. But the image itself, Schopenhauer is sitting there, decades before anyone could think of calling it a diagnosis, Frankfurt.